This has been a while in the making. Every lesson that we do has quite a bit of research to back it. We're the only community worth joining in 2025 if you want to not only be aware of what is happening in the field of technology, AI, and automation to sell things online and to make more money, as well as better yourself in all areas of life, not just through business, but through personal development, mindset, and leveraging resources out there like ChatGPT or Google Gemini to maximize the potential of these tools, given a lot of times people don't necessarily know what they're doing. So tonight, we're going to give you a briefing on something that these types of softwares can't handle. It relates to your core identity. And this is going to be the start of the week of branding and identity. We're going to cover the basis. It's going to be a short lesson, but there'll be a lot of talking in between as I explain each of these points to you as an expert explains to an amateur. I want you to take notes regardless of where you're at, regardless of how many followers you have, because simply there are things you will learn tonight if you open your mind and pay attention. You might think you know it all. When we all close ourselves off to patterns of thought, prevent us from being open to new ideas, that's when we stop growing and when the others will outgrow us. So tonight, pay attention and let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. I want to get straight into the next university lesson. I appreciate all of you for being here. Tonight's lesson is focused, as I said previously, on one topic: why most creators stay broke and why branding without internal vision is absolutely detrimental. So first, we need to learn why these tactics fail and why 99% of creators just plateau or burn out, because you see this problem all of the time. You see creators that just simply can't perform, that can't live up to the hype, to the pressure, and we don't know why this is the case. They say, well, I was posting content consistently, I was doing everything right, and for some reason, it just didn't work out. Well, there is a reason. It has everything to do with what you did before you started. When a lot of us just decide to make a podcast or an Instagram account while we're sitting in the car and not taking it seriously like a business owner would operate a brand. That's how I want you to start thinking. Tonight, we're diving into a critical analysis of the creator economy's current landscape. So our focus tonight is going to be understanding why a significant number of creators struggle financially despite apparent success. This becomes a problem I see all the time. We see creators who simply hit it out of the park, that have killer content, that are absolutely dialed in and gaining attention. But to save their life, they're still living in a $500 a month shared apartment with their friends from college because they can't afford to make it. And a lot of them are too busy DMing strangers all day, trying to scrape some cash out of them, that they can't think bigger and have an automated system do that work for them so they can make money while they sleep, while they're at the beach, while they're driving in their dream car, all because they made one little fix. They either work with our team at Ascend or they learned how to do it themselves through the digital syndicate and actually committed to taking action. We're going to dive into this critical analysis. But essentially, the aim of this is to uncover the underlying factors contributing to the phenomenon of why you can't make money or get monetized as easy as you think. We'll explore the concept of internal identity and its pivotal role in sustainable branding. This session is designed to equip you with insights to build a resilient and authentic brand from the inside out. We're going to start talking about some important examples and why brands can always stay around once they establish themselves as a dominant presence. In today's digital age, the term branding is often misconstrued. Most equate branding with logos, color schemes, and social media aesthetics. It's simply not. And a lot of times, you'll be like, that business has a good brand. You'll see a logo, right? A color scheme, maybe 2 or 3 colors that really point it out. And you think that that identifies whether or not they're going to get good sales. But there's so much more behind the scenes that is occurring that you are simply not aware of because it's happening in the 90% of your mind that is subconscious. Tonight, we'll examine pretty much how to identify that on your own and pull that back into the conscious mind. While these elements are components of branding, they're not its essence. True branding transcends visual representation. It's about conveying a consistent as well as authentic message. A very, very much common pitfall is the overemphasis on external validation. And a lot of times, this is just a human trait because humans are the ones running the business and the ones that give the business its core identity, as I've given Ascend an identity that aligns with my own. Our clean-cut aesthetic, our darker imagery, forward-thinking mindset based on innovation. As you see, encompassed by the way I present myself online and think and act and communicate my standards. This brand has been formed around my mindset, and I am also formed around the brand's mindset because I've set it at a place I not only am, but aspire to be constantly. Because brands take on the human-like persona, that means they're also subject to human-like flaws. One of these, external validation, comes from this tribal need that we feel biologically to be liked and in the in-group as humans. Creators will often chase likes, shares, or follower counts, mistaking those metrics for having success. However, these numbers can pretty much be misleading, right? Or do not necessarily translate to financial stability. What I would say is the pursuit of virality can lead to content that lacks in depth because essentially you're trying so much to be viral and to fit in with the trends that you lose the essence of who you are. As you guys can see, I'm literally sometimes making mistakes in this live stream. That's fine. I'm not trying to be clean cut and polished. And I'm actually embracing those flaws because it's not about making the perfectly aesthetic video. It's about knowing what standards I uphold and then performing as close as I can to that. When we lose the human touch, in some ways, that can be a bad thing as well. So it needs to be a balance between sticking to something that is greater than ourselves in terms of discipline and emotional control, but also being human. So it doesn't just weigh one side or the other. But as I've just said here, this approach may yield short-term attention, but it fails to build lasting connections with the audience, as many of you have seen from companies. And companies nowadays have taken on this new imagery. You'll see companies like Apple, like you saw before, Under Armour, even weird snack companies. I've seen Nutter Butter and Oreo and these goldfish companies that are messaging people as if they were real humans. And a lot of times they assign a creator to that account to message and reply to videos and comments as if they were an actual person to give the brand some sort of human-like aesthetic, because so much they focus on this clean-cut packaging and vibe that we lose the touch of communicating human to human. Brands have worked backwards and since realized they can leverage that ability to transform the way they market, and it's doing exceptionally well on social media, as you may be familiar. So let's go back. Reliance on platform algorithms for visibility can be precarious. So we can't just always rely on the algorithm to make us viral and just study only that. Algorithm changes can drastically affect reach and engagement, leaving creators vulnerable. If you're not paying attention to the latest trends or have somebody in your network that is, then you may be vulnerable. Without a solid internal identity, adapting to such changes can be absolutely challenging, especially if you don't have a network. Other people that are making content on the days you aren't or posting at the times you aren't, and finding things before you're 3 videos too late and wasted so much energy trying to figure out what's working and what isn't. As you may have realized, this becomes a reason to be part of a community of people that stay together, that study each other's patterns, and that get better together and find patterns and lapses in them that can be exploited or that might be coming to harm you. That's the point of the digital syndicate and the Ascend networking community that you can join at free, but you start working on things like that. It's essential to recognize that branding is not just about being seen. It's about being understood as well as remembered. Authenticity and consistency are the cornerstones, therefore, of effective branding. It's being consistent with an image that we desire to be, and also being authentic in the sense that we know what we will and won't do, and only following those guidelines for ourselves. I'm going to get into a cool topic real quick. Identity can be very vague, but it can also be the complete opposite. It can either be this thing we're trying to be that can be an idea in our mind, or with a little bit of work and effort to visualizing it, it can be a clear-cut set of principles or rules. And so my question to you is, why wouldn't you define your identity so you know exactly what it is if you have the means to? What posts you create, what language you use, the wins and losses that you strive for. These are all things, once again, that we cover inside of the Digital Syndicate. At the heart of sustainable branding lies internal identity. Internal identity encompasses your values, your mission, and unique perspective you bring to the audience. Keyword being you. Is the foundation upon which all branding efforts should be built. What I'll say is a well-defined internal identity guides content creation, ensuring alignment with your core message. So when you understand where you're going and what rules that dream self or that future vision for your brand, a lot of times it's where we want to be as a person, so that way we're improving along with the brand. We know whether or not that fits or doesn't fit the standards, depending on how well we define them. If they're half defined, you're always going to be guessing and wondering why you're not performing, because your audience, aka the algorithm, which can be a replaceable term half the time and interchangeable, isn't picking up clearly on what you stand for, because you don't necessarily even know what it is yourself yet. And so I'll put people to the litmus test. I'll have them look at their profile, or I'll have them look at a different profile and say, tell me exactly what this brand stands for. And they'll define it. Okay, well, maybe this is a dog post and they post a lot of dog friendly content. And then I go back to theirs and I say, what does yours stand for? And they'll read off the line or whatever they have in their bio, but I'll ask them, why would I follow this person's mission? And it's them. And they'll have to think about it. And I'll say, if you don't have that mission so clearly defined yet, then how do you expect anyone else or the algorithm to pick up on that easily and start showing that to the people that matter? That's why I recommend you always start with identity. A well-defined identity, once again, ensures alignment with your core message. And that's the point I want you to get out of that. It fosters authenticity, allowing you to connect with your audience at a deeper level. This connection builds trust, which is crucial for audience retention and conversion. More importantly, think about any other area of life. How have you been able to rely on a friend unless you trusted them? If you needed them to come get you at an airport or come have your back during a difficult emotional time in your life, if you didn't trust that that person would show up, how likely would it be that you text them regularly, that you put an effort to show them your appreciation, aka not always as the same as a business, but it could be spending money on them, buying them a gift. This law of reciprocity and how much we trust that other people will have our back can also be applied into the company sense. And when we think about personal brands, that needs to translate in saying that me, the person, is now broadcasted at a large scale, and I'm transitioning to more of that business side of things. So I'm going to lose this authenticity from having one-on-one conversations because I'm applying leverage to myself. And so I need to find a way to keep it authentic and still build trust to make up for that lapse in being able to have a million DMs with people that are following me and keep it a little bit more broad scale. So that is going to be a trade-off. As you grow in popularity, you're going to lose the ability to connect one-on-one with every single one of your followers, like if you only had 200 of them. So be aware of that. So let's get into the main point of this identity section. But essentially, a strong identity provides clarity in decision making because it helps you discern which opportunities align with your brand and which don't. When you have the guidelines, you know what to do once again and what not to do. So the discernment that we're making is vital in maintaining integrity and avoiding burnout. A lot of times I'll hear people understand that, but they'll only understand first part and not the second. If you know what you stand for and what you don't, let's put brands aside here. You know the rules that I stand for in life, what my moral code is. For example, I'm not going to cheat on someone in a relationship. That's my moral code. So when my actions are aligned with that, my work becomes more fulfilling and I become seen as more trustworthy because I stick to the laws I set for myself and for other people. And so people I'm dating, people in my close circle will understand that I hold myself to a standard and they can therefore respect me for that. If I didn't, they wouldn't know what to predict and therefore they couldn't rely on me, meaning they couldn't trust me. You guys see the connection there. So let's talk about the second part though that they forget, the burnout side. If I don't know what my identity is, or let's say I didn't have that moral guideline of I would cheat on someone in a relationship and I wasn't going to be loyal to other people, I would go out of my way to try to prove myself right and still get people to like me, even though they could blatantly see I wasn't following that moral code. And I would have to do much more work and simply following the guideline from the start. I'm basically playing catch up to try to still be liked while also having bad moral code. And regardless of, what you replace that with, maybe it's cheating on a test or not being a good friend or whatever it is. If you're playing catch up, trying to get people to like you and they can see you're doing it because you want to pretend to have an image, they're never going to trust you. And all that work's going to be wasted anyway. So you might as well start out picking guidelines you know for sure you can hold yourself to, and then growing your standard of discipline, not only as a person, but as a brand. Once again, a common issue in the creator economy becomes the likelihood of burnout. When your actions are aligned to your internal identity, your work becomes more fulfilling. That's the big thesis, that statement about identity. Because when we understand who we are, then things either meet that or don't meet that. And fulfillment comes from understanding the vision we've set for ourselves and actually feeling like we're making progress on it. You say, I want to be a better person. That's great. But what does this better version of you do? Do they work out 5 days a week? Because when you go and work out and hit day 5 on Friday and cross off that objective and say, I lived up to my identity, that's what gives you happiness. Living up to the moral standard you set for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're religious or you're just believing in doing good for yourself in the world. You should always have a set of guidelines you're looking to achieve, not just as a brand, but as a person as well. And that's what dictates how well the brand stays disciplined. Because at the beginning, you are the brand, regardless of what name you use to categorize yourself. But focusing on internal identity You create a brand that is resilient, adaptable, and most importantly, for trust, for followers, for engagement, authentic. Let's close on this. In conclusion, the sustainability of your brand hinges on a well defined internal identity. While external elements like visuals and metrics have their place, they should not overshadow the core aspect of your brand. Authenticity, consistency, and alignment with your values are paramount. I know I'm using really big words here, right? Authenticity, consistency, and alignment. But I want you to just think about it very simply for a second. Your brand was a person. And ideally, that person is someone you get along with because it's you, it's the image you set for yourself. And what I did with Ascend is I've actually grown a lot doing it because the vision I had for Ascend was not just where I was, it was what I wanted to be. I was going through a lot of difficult things at that time and decided to hold myself to a higher standard. I said the ascended version of me, the ascend operator version of me, is someone who never misses a day, is always going to find a way to show up regardless. Even though in some ways I wasn't going to the gym every day. The ascend version of me is someone who stays disciplined, that doesn't let emotions control their mind, but still feels emotion. For me, I was juggling different breakups and mental stressors and financial problems, and I couldn't get myself to just focus on the work. When I decided to pick a standard for myself, the ascend standard, I now had a value of judgment to place on myself. I either met the standard of letting emotions control me that day, or I couldn't check the box. But I wouldn't know where I was going unless I had that future vision of my identity. Because when we focus on building our brand from the inside out, we lay a groundwork for lasting success because we know exactly what it is. And then more importantly, if we're trying to be the brand, we know exactly how to fit into that box. And this is a box that we get to choose, not one that you were born into, that your parents shape, that your bullies in high school or middle school shape for you, that your experiences interacting with other people around you shape. You get to build the version of yourself. And I understand that sounds meta and cheesy, but in this sense, this is the best way to self-develop, regardless of all the programs, all the books you've read. Choosing your identity and then measuring yourself against it is how Ascend operators truly carry themselves, and why we see such a high rate between 99 to 100% a lot of cases when they actually follow the plan of succeeding in this space. As you can see here, guys, this is the end of the lesson. I want you to think about something other than what I've just told you tonight. Obviously, we have our tagline, stay disciplined, stay authentic, stay lethal. But more importantly, one final thought I would give you is this. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to pitch anything. I don't even want your money because for me, I've determined the Ascend identity, and that's the point I'm making. I don't have to go into sales calls and beg for money. I've actually raised my prices in extreme amounts because A, it sets the standard of my brand. Otherwise, I'm not some cheap virtual assistant. We are an operations team that actually then, when you pay us, have the money to provide what we say we're going to do. Otherwise, we're scrambling to play catch up just to make a few bucks. That has never fit into the Ascend way of doing things. We gladly charge more to you and therefore have almost an 100% rating of approval on all of our services because we know what we stand for and we route and vet every person instead of trying to accept anyone that comes in our path. We're not selling ourselves up for cheap cash or caring whether or not someone says yes. We're screening people, trying to find people that align with our identity. And because we've done the exercise of finding our identity, that's how we know whether or not we're best for someone. And it protects our ratings. It protects our ability to service others. It protects, more importantly, our ability to stay true to the vision we set for ourselves. If you're listening carefully, you're going to start to realize that this wasn't just about branding as a whole. It's about you. Whether or not you hold yourself to the same standards. You go out there and determine whether or not someone is right for you. Whether or not you're selling yourself out for cheap fun and excitement to other people, to dates, to partners, to anybody in your life that doesn't deserve it. This is a decision that you make. And so you can either own the fact that you have standards and not be afraid to put your foot down and determine whether people are right for you, or you can go ahead and keep serving others and trying to make it work and realizing why you're burning out, trying to hold that smile on your face every day. The biggest problem that I'll face, and is the first lesson, let alone the first phase of the digital syndicate, which we will have attached down below. Too many people will come to us saying, well, I feel burned out. I feel tired. Well, it's because you're trying to sell your $85 offer to people that don't even want something that's free, let alone don't have the money. They're not qualified. So the first thing we have to go in is say, what is your value? Are you trying to serve these people properly? Or do you just want to feel good about saying you help someone. When you're clear about the fact that you only serve X person and they need to be qualified and your time is worthy of respect, then we can go in and build systems that actually qualify people. That saves you time. You start feeling better about yourself because you know who you do and don't serve. You can go on to sales calls and say, I can either help you or I can't. But this is a two-way interview because I'm not going to handle objections. I'm not going to close the deal. We're either right for each other or we aren't. And it makes a sales call and all of our processes that we have selling anything much more smoother. That person does know when we say yes that it means something. It has gravity and weight to it. Do the same thing. Hold yourself to that standard. Design that vision of your brand. If you guys are asking how you do that, don't worry. Once again, the Digital Syndicate covers all of that, but we're going to go ahead and make more content Thursday and obviously answer questions on our coffee hour Saturday about how to do that. I appreciate your time. Go ahead, like and subscribe. We will see you for next week's university lesson. But obviously, if you want the deeper dives like we do Thursdays and Saturdays and all of the lessons and GPT prompts and AI software tools, that's going to come in the Digital Syndicate. Keep killing it, lock into your mission, stay laser focused, and hold yourself to the highest standard of performance and excellence that is available. You got this.